The real challenge is how you get that confidence up for the farmer to say yes and to say, okay, I'm going to buy this.
One, two, three.
Coming up on The Modern Acre, we're talking to Bill Brady, the founding CEO and director for Kula Bio, a sustainable and organic nitrogen fertilizer company.
The Modern Acre is the podcast for builders in ag who think differently. The Modern Acre podcast is presented by Myland, a soil health company that's revolutionizing agriculture. Through their innovative soil as a service, Myland partners with farmers to improve their soil health with the power of beneficial live native microalgae. The result? Healthier soils, more productive farms, and benefits like smarter water use. Discover how Myland can transform your farm at myland.ag. All right, Tim, I think we should just have a parenting corner check-in. I think it's time. It's been a while. How are things going as a parent of two girls now? You're what? How many months into father of two?
Coming up on 6 months. It's crazy since Hunter's been born back in early October. So it's been quite the ride. I feel like you didn't do it justice going from 1 to 2, Ty. Like, I think,
of course I did. That is crazy.
It's a lot of, like, I was trying to explain it. We were like at a wedding in Texas last week, and there was like a lot of couples that just had like one, like, wait until 2. It's not like twice as hard. It's like 5 times as hard of having one, of just like having no downtime. There's no kind of nap breaks to kind of get things organized. It's a lot going on on the work front with everything we have going on, and then getting home at 4 or 5 and turning on dad mode for 3 hours straight. It's been very fun and rewarding, but also very exhausting.
Farmer mode into dad mode, back into farmer mode, back into dad mode.
Yeah, exactly. The task switching just continues. But we were talking, Ty, a couple weeks ago, and you said your daughter Shar was in school, and they were kind of teaching her how to like deal with emotions and kind of like managing, like, something bad happens, how do you react to that? And their kind of framing was, is this a big problem or a small problem? Like, right now, Mason's at that age, she's 3.5, and like a lot of, of those outbursts of just everything is a big deal. And so this past weekend, I like sat her down, and she was having a meltdown because she lost her favorite bath toy, turtle. She was downstairs having breakfast, and all of a sudden just kind of threw off breakfast because she was upset about the turtle. And I said, Mason, cousin Shar is in school, and she's learning about big problems and small problems and how to react and manage expectations, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, is the turtle, is this a big problem or a small problem? And she's like, it's a big problem, Dada. And the meltdown continued. So I think she might need to be a little bit older to bring that tactic into play.
It's definitely a lesson learned in kindergarten. And I think for that reason, because every problem for a child under 4 is a massive problem.
Massive problem.
I could imagine losing the turtle. I mean, frankly, it sounds like a big problem to me.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Ty, what's new in your neck of the woods?
So I got a story. So we've been, you're going to get to this soon, Tim, where you're trying to figure out sports and what to do. A lot of people thought I would be this intense sports dad. I'm not. I've chilled out majorly, right? I just want my girls to be happy, to do what interests them. The one thing I do care about is getting them exposed to a number of things, right? I think that's really important at a young age. So we've been doing ballet for a while. That's been kind of like the big thing, but haven't done as much like on the traditional sports front. I've been like kind of taking them to the driving range for golf. We just started tennis lessons for both girls, 4 and 6. And the younger Emmy is like, she's been kind of like limping through the tennis lessons. Shar, my oldest, is like loving it, thriving, really like loving it. Ruth and I have been having this conversation of like, it's kind of unfair to Emmy because she's younger. She's starting younger than when like Shar is starting now. And we want her to have a positive experience. And there was also an opportunity to do basketball with her little cousins. So we're like thinking of, hey, maybe we'll propose to Emmy. She can do basketball instead of tennis. And so we sat her down last night, heart-to-heart conversation. Shar was in the other room, and we said, Emmy, we've been doing tennis. Next week is our last week of tennis until the next session starts. Like, you don't need to do it again. Like, we don't need to, after this week, you can decide if you want to do it again. And she's looking at us like, what does mom and dad want me to say right now? They're like, she was very much like, didn't want to say the wrong thing, which is actually not her personality at all. And I looked at her and I was like, honey, you can say you just want to take a break right now. And she like let out a big exhale and she's like, I just want to take a break right now. So we are pausing tennis for Emmy, the youngest, and then we asked her if she wants to do basketball with her cousins, and she was like super excited about it. So we're like, sounds good. So we got her in basketball. Char's loving tennis. Char also wants to do basketball. So it's becoming quite complex of how do we get them in like a few things that they can experiment with. So it's getting more complicated by the day, Tim.
Yeah, it's balancing a lot of logistics once the kids have all the activities going on. We did swim lessons and soccer last year, and it was like every other day you're like driving to and from. So it adds up once you get multiple kids, but it's fun to get them exposed to all this different stuff.
All right, let's jump into this episode, Tim. Kula Bio is doing some awesome work in the biological space, specifically around biofertilizer. On this podcast with Bill, we get into his journey, what Kula Bio is doing specifically, and how biofertilizer fits into the whole kind of farm operation and how it interacts with traditional nitrogen. A lot of really interesting stuff. And Bill gives us, I think, a really good look into leading a company in this space.
We're also super glad to have Kula Bio on the Aglis platform. Were one of our early adopters joining the platform. So special shout out and thanks for that. Let's dive into the episode with what's top of mind for Bill.
Well, Dr. Dan Nocera from Harvard and I started Kula about 6 years ago. And we built, I think, what is now a really strong platform around Nocera's original idea. And we are in the stage now where 120% of my focus is how do I now get this to have an impact in the world? And for me to have an impact in the world, I've got to figure out a way to get the farmer to say yes. And so top of mind, 100 days out of 100 days, how do we get the farmer to say yes?
Yeah, I think that's a challenge a lot of ag tech companies are in, of just how do you get grower adoption? How do you commercialize, getting boots on the ground? There's a lot of different strategies on going direct or going through the channel and really building that out. And yeah, I think would be interesting maybe digging into your background a little bit more, like what led you to ultimately found Kula Bio. And then we'll kind of get into kind of the phases of the company of developing the product and commercialization. So let's learn a little bit more about you, Bill.
Yeah, well, I'm a chemist by training, and I spent the first 25 years of my career in the chemical industry working for a fossil fuel-based chemical company. I ended up, so I have a guilty conscience. I ended up running a $3 billion business, 23 plants in 17 countries. It was an unbelievable learning experience. By the way, it was a public company, so I had the Wall Street quarterly drill as well. And about 15 years ago, I got focused on climate change. I was kind of staring at 50. I was 48, I think, and just started really to think about purpose and impact in life. And so I got focused on climate change. And in the past 15 years, I have founded 4 climate tech companies. First one was a biofuels company. It was Biofuels 1.0. A lot of people get goosebumps when those words are said because that was a really, really tough going. And then I co-founded a hydrogen energy company called Monolith Materials. And after Monolith, I met Dan Nocera at Harvard, and we founded Kula Bio. But, my journey was I learned a hell of a lot in the old school industries, and then just really got focused on impact, and impact is really what drives me today.
Just a casual $3 billion business.
Yeah, it wasn't so casual, man. Those were tough. Let me tell you, those were tough businesses. They are tough businesses to run, and I just learned so much. It was really, really terrific. I actually lived all around the world during that time as well. So it was just a whole eye-opening education in my life.
I can only imagine. So, I mean, you kind of make this pivot First of all, I don't think you should feel guilty. I feel like this is like something that we all get into careers, and I don't think we should be responsible for, where the journey takes us. But I think it's awesome that you're now pursuing, hey, something that gives you that passion and that purpose. I think is super cool. So, I mean, talk us through, you want to kind of pivot into climate. You found a few companies. Kula Bio. Talk us through the origin story and meeting your partner, and what those early conversations looked like. How early did you know, hey, this could be a thing?
Well, the first thing I knew right away is that Dr. Nocera was a force of nature. He's just one of those people in the world that we've got to fund, fortify, support, and let him do his thing. He's amazing when you meet him. And, Dan and I sort of scratched out early on, can this thing be competitive with synthetic nitrogen? Because if you don't build, whether it's Kula Bio or any other company, if you don't build companies that can compete head to head without carbon credits, without the green premium, products and cost structures and distribution networks that are real street fighters, if you're not developing that, you're wasting time. And so, Dan's concept, there were very simple inputs. So it started out with kind of a pretty interesting cost advantage. And then we had this dual whammy of technology angles. One was these microbes that we use, they existing in nature, and they're natural nitrogen fixers. Their only problem is when they get in the soil, they have to compete for food and energy. And so they only live for about a day. So they do beneficial work, but it's really small impact. So Nocera's idea was, let's give them their own independent source of energy. We sort of fatten them up. Think of like a bear prior to hibernation. Before they go in the soil, and then they don't have to bother with anyone else. They just draw off of that energy store. And rather than living for hours, they live for about 3 weeks. So that was one technical angle. We said, oh, that can also really help the cost structure. And then the other thing we did was we make these microbes at very high microbial densities. So, in a liter, you have billions, trillions of microbes who are all fattened up and ready to go. And so that packed a lot of nitrogen into a relatively small space. That was the concept and made a lot of sense. And we said, okay, we just need some really fantastic bioengineering to execute the hell out of this thing. And that's what we did for 5 years.
Bill, walk us through that process, that journey of going from kind of the initial idea in the lab to really running through the process to commercialize this. Like, talk about kind of registration, the steps you have to jump through to really get a product that's field ready.
Yeah, I mean, we're a little bit different. I take criticism for being too conservative in how or lack of boasting about the company, but our style is that we built the machine and then we let it do the talking for itself. And so we went to work on building bioreactors. First thing, bioreactors that could make these microbes and make them cost competitively. Someday I'll show you the pictures, but we started out our first bioreactor. We bought the pipes and the bags and everything from Home Depot. I think it cost us $500 or $600 to build it. And you should see them now. I mean, they're pretty sophisticated things. So we started small, we started crude, and then, we went down the development path. We brought in experts. One other thing we did that was unique is we put early prototypes in the field really early, knowing they were not going to be perfect. So we started the company in the fall of 2018, and we had product on a lettuce and corn field in spring of 2019. Some of our scientists look back on that and think, my gosh, we don't even know what the hell was in that product at the time. But we did that so that we got feedback. We got farmer feedback, and then we could focus our innovation not around what we thought or what we were interested in, but in what the farmer was telling us. And so some crude early bioreactors early on the farm, and then just triangulated between those three things over time, and learned and built.
Let's dig into that farmer message. Like, how are you communicating this to farmers? Is this a replacement? Is this a supplement that makes the ability to use fertilizer just much more efficient? Like, how do you simplify this for a grower that's interested?
We tell the growers, there used to be 3 forms of nitrogen: liquid, solid, and hydrous. Now there's 4. Now the 4th is biological. So it's nitrogen. Nitrogen is nitrogen. Our product works just like those other 3 forms, but it has a much better environmental footprint, and all kinds of environmental advantages. So that's one way we simplify it for the grower. It's nitrogen. Nitrogen is nitrogen. The other thing too, when we started the company, we went out, we contacted 600 farmers because we wanted to learn, is this a good idea or a bad idea? And the farmers were really loud and clear with us. They loved the idea. They loved the idea of protecting their biggest asset, which is their soil. But they said, let me just tell you a few things. Number one, I'm not going to pay you any more money. I just can't. And number 2, I'm not going to change my farming practices. We've been doing it. We got a way to do it. And number 3, I'm not going to buy new capital equipment. So whatever you develop, you want me to use it, make sure you fit in those parameters. So that was really useful for building the product and innovating within those constraints.
Bill, at the top, you talked about kind of your thoughts on just wanting to get sales, start to commercialize. Maybe talk to us about the approach. Like, do you have sales team all over the country? Are you working through dealers, distributors? Like, what does that look like kind of on a regional, national level?
Yeah. So maybe a little bit of background, and then I'll get to the go-to-market. But we've tested the product on probably about 200 farms at this point in time. Really, really solid results. And we've replaced anywhere between 40 and 100 pounds of nitrogen per acre with our microbes. We got the product registered in 48 states. And we also have OMRI organic certification as well for the product. So we've got all that background. And then our go-to-market plan, I think there's 2 really important things. One is we are taking the approach of produce first, row crop second. And for a lot of reasons. But the bottom line is, because I just thought we were going to be more successful because of the way produce farmers fertilize and so on and so forth. We were going to be more successful sooner in produce, which meant we would learn faster, which meant, in my opinion, we will ultimately get to row crops faster because we're going to learn so much in produce. So that was one principle of our go-to-market. The second one is that we feel pretty strongly that we need to co-opt and have partnerships in the existing ag distribution supply chain. You guys may be the same, but many, many, many farmers I met have very trusting relationships with their retailer, their distributor, and their crop advisors. And in many cases, their fathers did business together, maybe their grandfathers. And so there's a tremendous amount of trust there. So we've been working really hard to get the crop advisors in the network to understand and be enthusiastic champions for our product. And that's how we'll continue to go to market.
Bill, want to dig into just this whole process of commercialization. There's a ton of companies that have gone through this and trying to get adoption. What have been the biggest challenges, barriers of entry?
There's no shortcuts. I think that's one thing. You have to do the work. You have to do the science. You have to have the stability in the product. You have to supply it without variation to the farmer. You can't give them a bunch of microbes that work today and then next month's batch, they died or they're not healthy. You can't do it. They've got to be able to rely on it. So you got to do all that work. I think the real challenge for all of us, and I'm sure if I had my colleagues who are trying to commercialize bio-based products with me, they'd agree. I think the challenge is getting the farmer from, wow, that was a really interesting trial. We saw really good results. Let's do another one over on that section of the farm, more acres over on that section. And then you do that and they go, pretty good. Okay, let's now try, 100 acres over here. And here you are with 1 year intervals of trialing. And the real challenge is how you get that confidence up for the farmer to say yes and to say, okay, I'm going to buy this. And that way we get revenue, it supports what we do, and so on and so on and so forth. That's the real challenge. And like I said, I'm just not sure there's a shortcut to that.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's challenging. I think the hardest part is getting on farm, getting the trial established. But typically, like a farmer is going to want to do, strip trial. Let's take a field and split it and do small scale trial, see how it goes. The next year, it's like, all right, maybe we'll do 2 fields, and like it's just kind of incremental crawl, walk, run approach. And so like it's good to kind of get that initial touch point because there's a lot of room to grow with that customer. If you start with 1% of the operation, there's the ability to kind of upsell and get more market share by getting those early grower relationships established. It just takes multiple years to get there.
And I understand why. I understand why. I mean, the farmers can't take the risk. They can't have a down yield. And I've never been, some companies have taken the tactic of, insurance or paying for the crops for 3 years. I've never really believed in that approach because I think your product either works or it doesn't. And the farmers will know. They'll see it and they'll know. So anyway, we're on that journey. We're doing well. We are commercial. We commercialized 2 products at the very end of 2024. You guys, they're on AgList. Kula Next, which is a conventional nitrogen product, and Kula N, which is an organic product. So we've done that. We've got real live customers, and we're growing, month by month.
Bill, you've built a ton of companies. You've been involved in space for a while. Just would love to talk about just kind of how you think about building teams. You have a very nice executive team on the website, some good advisors, and also a board of directors. So maybe just talk to us about kind of like, how you think about building out the corporate structure of a company and the board of directors in particular. Like what kind of people are you looking for there to bring value to the company?
Yeah, I might, if it's okay, I might back up and answer the question with a little bit of context, because I've started all of these companies with the same 4 basic values, and that has sort of driven the kind of people that come and the kind of people that you attract. So I want to just talk a little bit maybe about those values, and I'll talk about the people in there. So the 4 values. The first one is innovation. Of course, everybody says, I have a value of innovation, but how I really define it is we want people who love to take inventions and make them impactful. That's our definition of innovation. So you can't just love thinking big thoughts, discovery of new microbes. You got to love taking a good idea and making it cost competitive, making a product farmers love, etc. So one is, you won't find a lot of dreamers in our teams or on our board. You'll find a lot of people who want to take, big dreams, big inventions, and have it be impactful. The second one is, integrity. And one of the things I really try to do in building teams, whether it be boards or management teams, is I like to fill kind of half the room with people who have seen the movie before, people who have done it before. They know what's going to work. They know what's not going to work. And the other half of the room is people who don't give a damn how it's worked in the past. They want to do it a new way. And then it's my job to create intellectual collisions between those 2 groups. And on any given problem, if you get those two groups coming at it from different angles, debating and fighting about it, you get to much, much better answers. So I really value that diversity of thought, and I love setting up those intellectual collisions. Having said that, I also have to create an environment where there's a lot of generosity of spirit. So like, just because this guy said that doesn't mean he hates you. And, so that you can fight in the conference room, but when you're done, you're fine. So we do that. We really value intellectual honesty. Like, let's see what the data says, and let's not make stuff up. Let's really be data driven. And then the final thing that's really important to us is I like people who have balance in their life, because I think if you don't have balance in your life, quite simply, you can't operate at your best. Whether you're an athlete or a bioprocess engineer, I think it's really true. So I like board directors. I like leaders who lead with balance. And then I like employees who can get their work done effectively and have balance in their life as well. So I build, sorry for the long-winded way to answer that, but I build based on those four values. And I think those type of people get attracted to us and we get attracted to them.
Go off. That was awesome. I was trying to soak in all that wisdom. That was great. I mean, I love what you say about balance. I think that there's different schools of thought here, but I definitely lean in your direction. I think if people are stressed out completely and don't have that balance, they're not going to do their best work, where I think other leaders feel like you have to be operate at a 11 out of 10 intensity all the time. And I think there's periods of those sprints, right? But being able to have balance, both in the work you're doing and also in balance with your personal life, right? I think is all really, really important and allows people to do their best work. So I love that. I was soaking it up.
I'll tell you another interesting story. I've really also tried to be really progressive with family time. And my first take on that, because Monolith Materials was a Silicon Valley based company. So my first take on and we were competing with Netflix and Google and all these companies. First take on that was unlimited vacation. To my complete shock, the result of the unlimited vacation policy is nobody was taking their vacations because they didn't quite know the rules. They saw their boss working hard and it didn't work. And so we shifted over time to more traditional vacation, but very, very generous family leave time. And for both males and females in the company. And I can't tell you how many people, particularly people who have children and particularly their first child, the words are always different, but the message is how much it's appreciated and how much of that they're going to give back to the company because the company thought of them. And so that's related to balance, but it was an interesting lesson we learned on actually how to do it.
Totally. I think I've been at a few companies that had the unlimited PTO, and it is kind of a sham because people are afraid to use it. It was like the Silicon Valley companies got together and was like, hey, what would be a great idea? We just call it unlimited. No one will want to take it, and it's going to work out. And the other benefit is there's a financial benefit of, I believe, with the unlimited PTO, you don't have to pay unused, right? Like if a person leaves, they've accrued X amount of days, that you don't get that with unlimited PTO. So I think we were all kind of bamboozled with the unlimited PTO. And I like hey, let's have a generous policy, and the expectation is that you use it, right? So love that.
Yeah.
Well, just leave it to the Modern Acre podcast. We just do a rabbit trail on unlimited PTO policy. But all right, Bill, I want to shift gears here. What's your ag hot take? Maybe a contrarian opinion you have within ag.
My ag hot take is that it's going to take a long time for carbon credits to be impactful in what we're doing. I believe in them. I believe they're coming. I believe they're going to be a magnificent tailwind. I hope it's in my lifetime. But in the meantime, I say build companies, products, services that are street fighters with the incumbents. And that's the way we're going to have impact on the climate.
No, I completely agree. I feel like the carbon market has been kind of a little bit in flux the past couple of years. Not a reason to not be building for products and services that can help address that, and the market will catch up. Bill, as we wrap up, just wanted to talk to you about the industry in general. Biologicals is a big booming category. It's set to be a large percentage of the crop protection, crop input market in the next couple of years. Hundreds of companies. One of the reasons why we built Aglist to kind of help create opportunities to stand out from the crowd and kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, as they say. Maybe talk to us about your thoughts on Aglist and why Kula was a fit.
Ultimately, for all of us in the bio ag space to be successful, we're going to have to figure out something to do at the intersection of the small innovative technology company and the big company who has all the infrastructure and the balance sheet, whether that be a distribution company or manufacturing company or whatever. We're going to have to figure a healthy way to manage that interface. But in the interim, those big companies, and I used to run one of them, so I was in that seat on the other side of the table, they are not going to do anything with the small tech companies. So the small tech companies got to find niche, innovative ways to get the product to market, steal a few customers from the incumbents, and then you have their interest. And so, we were really, and so we have done that with specialty regional retailers and distributors. And then we were thrilled when you guys came to us with the idea of Aglist, because that's another way as well. I think we got to be innovative in how we get the message and how we get the product to customers in the interim. But then over time, like I said, we got to figure out a way to match the big companies with the technology companies. So we're delighted to be with you guys. We think it's going to be a really successful partnership, and we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Bill. And it's excited to see how you guys have started, scaled, grown, and are now getting on more and more farms, and people are seeing the value. So we're excited for you guys. Obviously, we're super excited for the whole market to mature. I think it needs maturity, and hopefully this is the next step for that. Bill, as we wrap things up, how can listeners get in touch and connect with you and Kula Bio?
Best way is our website, kulabio.com. You'll have everything you need there to get in touch with us individually, or there's trial data, there's product data sheets, and you can even order product off of that. So that's the best way to do it. And of course, if you want to buy off Aglist, that works too for us.
So Tim, what'd you think?
Super fun conversation with Bill. His background is so awesome, working in such large companies and then really finding kind of inspiration and passion around Kula Bio and founding the company. I think really interesting. They're starting kind of more on the specialty crop side, where a lot of times we talk to companies and they're kind of row crop focused, going after TAM. And so I think it's a really good way to kind of carve out a niche in biologicals focused on kind of the specialty crop space to start. Also thought he had some really good insights around kind of board construction. Like, love that part of the conversation where he kind of dug into like really how he looks at curating the right people to have in his corner on the board. So I thought that was awesome as well.
Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you haven't already, check out Aglist. Tim and I launched Aglist about 2 months ago to really be the Yelp for ag biologicals, to make sense of all the different products and companies out there. So if you're a biological company, check it out, sign up to list your products. And if you're anyone else in the ecosystem, a farmer, an agronomist, a researcher, a distributor, check it out, create an account, see how you can get involved at aglist.com.